Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Well, March is finally over, and while it was enjoyable for me IRL, it was mostly not a good book month for me. We've got a DNF, a 1 star, and thankfully a 4 star, so let's get into it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel so you know when I post next, and now let's begin. So, the first book that I read in March was Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. This is an adult romance about a woman who is whisked away into a life of glamour and dazzle when her boyfriend takes her on a summer road trip to meet his family and reveals that they're crazy rich, along with side plots focusing on different members of the family, including his scheming mother and his cousin dealing with her cheating husband. I DNF'd this book. I didn't finish it. Okay. So I really liked the movie when I saw it a few years ago, and so I wanted to get the book and read it then. My mother ended up getting me the whole series for Christmas that year, and they've just been sitting collecting dust on my shelf for like the past 5 years or so. So I finally decided to dive into it and read it. For me, it desperately needed an editor to tell the author, like, hey, cut the shit. Half of this stuff isn't relevant to the plot. Cut it out. Let's refocus here. There are so many POVs in this book when there doesn't need to be, and so many background characters that get their own detailed backstory, or we shift into their POV for a paragraph or two, and it's like, stop! Stop! Please just focus on the actual story instead of taking every other paragraph to world build the aesthetic and tell us how every single person in the room is reacting to what's going on. We don't need one-off POV chapters from random family members of friends. We don't need a subplot of distant relatives that aren't involved at all. We don't need to shift POVs in the middle of a chapter to various background characters and then shift back to the main person's POV. If we had just focused on Rachel and Nick and their story, since, that's how the book is marketed as being all about them and not the entire family's different dramas. With, perhaps Eleanor's perspective to see what Miss Mother in Law is planning to break them up, it would have been fine. If that's what the book had been about, truly, it would have been fine. Maybe keep Cousin Astrid's subplot with her cheating husband just because I like her, but cut the rest of the family and friend drama out because it just takes away from the main story. You could literally cut 200 to 300 pages of this book and it would be perfectly fine. I'm serious. I'm serious. I got halfway through this book and I just said, I can't. I can't. I'm so bored. I can't take this anymore. I'm sorry. If it had just focused on the main romance, like it was marketed as, it would have been a perfectly fine story. Either that, or just market the book as a family drama story, since all kinds of relatives that don't really have anything to do with Rachel and Nick get so much spotlight. Just pick one. Like, with that being said, something positive I can say is that it's clear from the writing and the anecdotes that the author really does love his birth country and culture of Singapore and was very excited to write a story with that setting, and I think that's great. Regardless of how I feel about the messy plot, I did enjoy learning little tidbits about Singapore and what it's like growing up there, and really felt the love the author has for his country, so that was nice. Will I read the other two books? No. Will I watch the second movie when it releases in 2054? Yes, the movie is still iconic and I want to see the story continue in that format. Next up, The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This is an adult thriller, in air quotes, about a lawyer wife and her cheating husband being at the center of a murder investigation. The husband, Adam, was having an affair, his mistress was murdered, and now he's the prime suspect for who killed her. The wife, Sarah, decides to take on the case and defend her husband and try to prove his innocence in the murder. I gave this a 1 out of 5 stars. If I could give it a 0 out of 5 stars, I would, but Goodreads doesn't allow that, so it gets a 1 out of 5 stars. Y'all, I found the worst book I've read so far this year. Yes, that includes DNFs. Like, this, I don't even know where to begin with it. How this has like a 4-star rating on Goodreads, I don't know. I have a conspiracy theory that the author has bought some good reviews because, like, the top 50 reviews that I saw were mostly 1 and 2 stars that all said the writing was trash, the dialogue was stilted, there was plot holes everywhere, the author has no idea how the legal system in the US works, etc. And they aren't wrong. It really is terrible. Honestly, I'd love to see the first draft of this book because how the hell did this go through a beta reader, an agent, and an editor, and this was the final product that everyone said, yeah, this looks good to publish? Like, how did everyone look at this and go, like, yeah, we can ship that out to bookstores. Yeah, that's okay. I don't get it. Spoilers for the book, by the way, but let's start with the writing. Yeah, it's bad. You can tell the author thinks she's a great writer and was trying to like spruce up the way things are written when they really didn't need to be. I don't exactly know how to best explain this, especially since I got this for free on Amazon Prime. I downloaded it to my phone. Like it was the Kindle version, And the second that I finished it, I like immediately like unloaded that, deleted it from my library, like it's gone. Bye. So I can't really like pull up specific examples, but all throughout the book, the author's word choice just kept making me stop and think, why did you say that? Why did you use that word or that phrase when you really didn't need to? Why did you describe something like that? Like, okay, I specifically remember this. Like, every single woman in this book is described as petite. Even on the first page, the wife was describing herself as like, oh, I'm just so small and petite, and I like we're all petite, 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 and it's like, stop. Like, first of all, can you not come up with any other like body types for your characters? Second of all, if you're going to make everyone like teeny tiny and small, can you at least use synonyms? Like, please, like what? Like, why are we using the same word to describe like every single person? Stop. Like, it was annoying. Next, the characters. They're all terrible. Okay? There is literally not one person in this book that is likable and makes you want to root for them. Sarah, the lawyer wife who defends her husband on murder charges, is honestly just so unserious. So all throughout the book, she was the only person that I was like kind of rooting for because it seemed like she was just an all-around victim thrown into this situation that is now causing trouble for both her work and personal life, and her dumbass husband is doing everything in his power to make himself look undeniably guilty. But then the twist ending happened in the final chapter where she was like, I planned all this from the beginning. Wahahaha. And I was just like, oh, so everything was fake. Okay, well, never mind then. Move. Adam, the cheating husband who is framed for the murder of his mistress, is obviously someone you can't root for. I'm honestly not even sure what the author wants the reader to think of him, because at times it feels like she's trying to get us to sympathize with him, but then at other times it seems like she's writing him as the villain he is. And no matter what, we just can't feel sorry for him at all because he's a nasty cheater that got his mistress pregnant and is a total loser living off his wife's money because he's a struggling artist writer that just refuses to get a job. Sir, you have a car. Go down to McDonald's and fill out an application instead of making your wife buy a lake house for you to cheat on her under the guise of taking frequent writer trips to help with my creative writing so I can finish this book and get it published. Like, stop! And the way that Adam talks about Sarah all throughout the book is just so gross. Like, one second he'll be like, I hate my wife. She is the bane of my existence. And next be like, oh, but I love her so much and want us to work things out after all this. Why am I giving these people Southern accents? They're not from the South. They're from like Washington or something. No, Washington D.C. Yeah, they're like in the New England area. I think. I don't know. I'm not good with geography. And the rest of the cast is all equally unlikable. Adam's mother, Eleanor, that butts her head in the investigation all throughout the book. A, she doesn't serve a purpose in the book. And B, she's a total Karen and hateful bitch. Like, oh my god. Like, I don't even know why she hates Sarah so much. Like, it's just giving, like, internalized misogyny, especially when she starts blaming Sarah for her husband cheating. Like, girl, it's just giving internalized misogyny. I'm not saying that Eleanor is like a bad or unrealistic, is like a bad or unrealistic character. On the flip side, I think she's like the only realistic character in this entire book, cause like quite a few mother-in-laws are like that. But she just wasn't likable. So, and that's the main theme with the characters in this book. They're just not likable. Anyway, Sarah's assistant, whose name I can't remember, I don't know what her name is the only non disgusting person in this book, but she's so meek and mild that it's just like, girl, stand up, grow a spine. Sarah's other friend, Matthew, whose only personality trait is that he's the sassy gay friend, is also an annoying bitch all the time. Her coworker Bob, that she ends up marrying in the end, it just oozes sexism every time he's on the page. Like, ew, creepy. Some lady named Rebecca that supposedly tries to help Adam prove his innocence but was hired by Sarah to spy on him doesn't really have much of a personality or relevance to the plot. All the cops are, well, cops, so they're all shitty. I can't even feel bad for the murder victim, Kelly, in all this, because she was cheating on her husband. Like, come on. Miss Geneva Rose, I promise you it's okay to write characters that are likable. Not everyone in the story has to be nasty 24/7. Like, it's okay to write likable people. I promise you, that's fine. Moving on to the plot, there are 5 billion things I could tackle, so let's just pick one and run down the list. First, if you work in the legal system at all, stay away from this book, unless you want to pull your hair out. All the lawyers in the reviews were writing their own novels about how X, Y, and Z would never happen in real life, and the author doesn't know the first thing about how the US legal system works. Now, I'm not in law or anything related to that. So I can suspend my disbelief just enough to be like, yeah, a wife representing her cheating husband in his murder trial sounds like a major conflict of interest, but the idea is interesting, so I'll bite. Or watch cops just storm into rooms and immediately start beating up the first person they see to a bloody pulp and be like, yeah, cops are evil demon bastards like that, so I can see that happening. However, even with that, the plot still sucks. So, yes, it's about a husband and wife. The husband is cheating, then accused of murdering his mistress, and the wife is a lawyer who decides to defend him. Sounds interesting enough on paper. My lord, this was simultaneously putting me to sleep and making me say, what the fuck? The investigation into who actually killed the mistress was so boring, and just Sarah and her team piddling around from place to place, not doing or discovering anything the entire time. There's like one or two clues that are so vague they could link back to pretty much anyone in the story. Like, come on. Adam tries to investigate the case on his own, but just ends up making himself look more insane and guilty. At one point, he gets put on house arrest, but then he figures out who a key piece of evidence links back to. And instead of doing the reasonable thing and waiting for his lawyer slash wife to return home from work, he chooses to break house arrest, storm into her office, and try to assault the person who the evidence linked back to and he thinks is the actual murderer. Yeah, you're doing great, man. Yes, the key piece of evidence that he was talking to linked back to her assistant, and so he went on a whole murderous rampage trying to like kill her assistant. So it's like, yeah, you're doing a great job trying to prove that you're not guilty of murder. Yeah, you're doing a great job. And throughout the entire book, we keep building up to the court trial and centering the plot and timeline around prepping for the trial, but when it finally comes around, we don't even see it. No joke. We spend the whole book building up to the trial. We get to the trial. Sarah gives her opening speech, and then we cut to black and jump 11 years into the future, well after the jury has decided Adam is guilty and sentenced him to death. So, we jump 11 years into the future to Adam's execution day. Him and Sarah talk one last time. We see him get lethally injected. And then we get a whole final chapter about Sarah monologuing how she was behind everything and everything went according to plan. Oh, she knew Adam was cheating long before, and she was the one who murdered Kelly and framed Adam. She hired Rebecca to spy on Adam and feed him useless information to make him think he was solving the case, but actually just making himself look stupid and guilty. And that's why she became his lawyer, so she could keep an eye on him and frame his defense exactly how she wanted to make sure he went to jail for the murder, and now she's living her best life. Which I'm not knocking her actions themselves, like go off queen, but it's just the way it was presented that was so boring. Having your main character spend like 10 pages doing her villain monologue and telling the audience how everything went down instead of just showing us, and also using the I planned it all along and controlled everything explanation to like explain why nothing was happening to make progress in the case for the last 300 pages doesn't radiate the bad bitch girl boss yes queen ending the author thinks it does. Instead, it just seems like the author knew the plot was going nowhere and didn't know how to fix it, so she just came up with something quick at the end to explain why everything was so dry. Also, I just hate the unreliable narrator trope. It just seems stupid most of the time and a convenient way to try and excuse a poor plot that makes no sense by just saying, oop, well, the narrator was actually lying to you this whole time, and here's what actually happened. Teehee. So, yeah, I absolutely hated this book, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be my worst read of the year. Let's move on to the final book that I read this month, and one that I actually enjoyed, The Davenports by Crystal Marquis. This is like Bridgerton with Black Americans. Set in Chicago in the early 1900s, it revolves around the Davenport family who have become extremely wealthy by selling luxury carriages. You follow four young ladies in their quest to find love and self discovery. There is Olivia Davenport, the oldest daughter of the family and middle child, who gets paired up with a wealthy businessman by her parents, but starts falling for a lawyer slash civil rights activist, and she wants to get more involved in making social change for herself. Next is Helen Davenport, the youngest child of the family who starts falling for the businessman her parents set up with her older sister, and who wants to become a mechanic despite her parents' refusal to support that dream. After that is Amy Rose, a maid who works for the Davenports that dreams of opening her own hair salon and falls for John Davenport, the son and oldest child of the family. And finally, there is Ruby Tremaine, a family friend whose parents want her to marry John for a rich match because the Tremaines are in financial trouble, but she starts falling for a man who her parents would never approve of and must decide whether to follow her parents' dreams and make herself miserable or follow her heart and get shunned by her family forever. I gave this a very confident and very pleasant 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I love stories about rich people drama, especially in the like historical fiction genre, so this was right up my alley. It's fun, it's cute, and it's messy, and that's exactly what I look for in romances and historical fictions. Surprisingly, all of the main characters and their suitors were likable. That doesn't mean that they were like perfect by any means, like some people did do some shady things, but there was no one that I hated. Like, I can root for everyone in this book to grow and get their happily ever after. Like, I want to see everyone in this book be happy in the end. I really enjoyed the twists towards the end, especially the one with the wealthy businessman that Helen was seeing. I will say there doesn't really feel like there's a climax to this book, just kinda that things happen that change the social dynamics of all the situations, and then the book ends. But regardless, I liked it and thought this was a lovely debut by this author, and I want a sequel to like see how everything gets resolved. Like, I really enjoyed this. Also, I read this on audio, and the narrator was great. Like, she had a very pleasant speaking voice that was so nice to listen to. So, what am I planning on reading in April? First, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I had an extra Audible credit, so I spent it on this because I've had my eye on it for years and finally decided to get it. Currently listening to it, and initial thoughts, it seems more suited for people that like A Court of Thorns and Roses, like that kind of like genre of fantasy stuff. But hopefully it gets better. Like hopefully it gets better. Also, I want to finish Prodigy by Marie Lu. Yes, I started it this month. No, I have not finished it. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life currently, which is also why videos have been slow to come out. But I'm reading it, and initial thoughts are that it doesn't seem as interesting as the first, because it seems to be more focused on making love triangles, which is never really a trope I like. Hopefully, it refocuses its attention to the main plot, because the idea for the actual plot sounds more interesting than that of the first, with the two main characters, like, being assigned by the rebellion to, like, go kill the president. Like, okay, I'm down for that. Okay. That was poorly worded. Like, FBI, don't come after me. I'm not talking about real life. This is a book. This is fiction. I'm not talking about real life. Okay? FBI, don't come after me. I'm sorry. Okay. Um, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Well, that's it for me. What did you read this month and how did you like it? If you read any of these books and have thoughts on them, let me know in the comment section. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.